Hi everybody, my name is Colin Sandberg from Backbone Performance, and this is the first video seminar that I am doing for the Backbone Performance blog. I wanted to get some information out there, and I plan to make this a regular thing, so if you like it, tell your friends about it. If you have any criticisms or suggestions, let me know. Either make a comment on the blog or on the YouTube video, whatever you like. If there's other topics you'd like to see covered or questions you have, let me know. Hope you enjoy it. So let me just quick tell you a little bit about myself. That's a picture of me, which I think is a great picture, except for the fact that I have my eyes closed. I am a road racer, Cat 1 road racer, Cat 2 on the track, and for cyclocross. I have been racing for 17 years, been coaching for 10 years. I am a USA Cycling certified level 2 coach. I'm also UCI director sportif. My degree was actually in industrial engineering from Pitt. I worked for GM, the Delphi Corporation, for 5 years after I graduated, and that was pretty much enough for me, so started coaching full-time after that. I am currently the head coach for Young Medalists High Performance, in addition to Backbone Performance, and I am the race director for the Young Medalist Team Rothrock Junior Cycling Team. Little bit about Backbone Performance, which is my company. We provide personalized coaching for cyclists of all levels. I like to say that we help athletes reach the next level, and what that means, reaching the next level, is that not every rider, unfortunately, is going to become a pro cyclist. Not every rider is going to race in the Tour de France. There is natural talent involved here, physical and mental. Anybody who's read my blog entry from last week may have read the article about the mental side of cycling, and that is a big part of it. But there are certain things that you must bring to the table. What I feel like I can do is help people get to the next level. My belief is you can only get so far on your own, and having the right coach, having the right guidance can help you get further than you would be able to get on your own. Some of our results in 2012, we had 2 gold medals at national championships, 11 state championship gold medals. One athlete won a UCI 2.1 stage race, and actually the same athlete had a top 10 at the Quebec Pro Tour race. So just a few of the 2012 results, many more. It's a good year, and we're hoping for even better next year in 2013. So let's get into it. Why have an off season? Well, weather, of course, is the obvious answer. Most people in most parts of the country can't train 365 days a year outside. And even those that can, the lucky few of you out there that live in Southern California or Florida or some of these other areas, there may be a lot of other good reasons why you may not want to do that, even if it is possible. Typically, my experience has been that most of those athletes that do train outside 12 months a year never are quite at 100%. So there is this thing called periodization, which is one of the basic concepts of training for any sport. I'll get into a little bit more in the next slide, but of course many books have been written about the concepts of periodization, so I'm really just going to scratch the surface. You want to have an off season to take a mental break and to take a physical break. Also, it's a chance to do other things besides ride your bike. there may be lots of reasons why you maybe, no matter how much you love riding your bike, there are other things you want to do in your life, whether those be physical things or chores around the house or at work or spending time with the people you love or whatever. There's other things, sometimes those deserve a little bit more attention, and sometimes you need to make up for the lack of attention you might give them the rest of the year. And of course, cross training, which is what I'm going to get into detail in this presentation mostly talking about is cross training. I do believe that there is value to doing cross training, even if you can ride your bike all the time, even if you do have a flexible schedule, get off work whenever, even if you do have mild winters where you can ride outside all the time. There is still value to doing other things, and I'll get into that further. So first, a little bit about periodization here. The basic idea with periodization is that you don't do the same thing all the time. People that do the same thing all the time will plateau pretty quickly. So there are different periods of training and different focus in each of those periods. So basic periodization, you have microcycles, mesocycles, and macrocycles. Typically those microcycles are weekly, mesocycles are monthly, macrocycles are annually. So let's start with the microcycles. Basically that means you don't do the same thing every single day of the week. You might have one day that is your recovery day, one day that is your longer endurance day, one day is your higher intensity day, and so forth. Focusing on different things in different days, stressing the system in different ways. Mesocycle, monthly cycle, that might refer to you have a build-up. Typical example would be you build up in volume and intensity week 1, week 2, week 3. Each of these weeks getting a little bit more volume, a little bit more intensity. 4th week you drop back down as a recovery week. I want to stress that's just an example. Macro cycle could be annually, could be biannually. What that means is you have different phases of your training that may be a month, it may be a couple months, maybe 3 months where you're really focusing on one thing or a number of things, and then you move into the next cycle. Typical periodization for a bike racer would be preparation phase in November, general preparation, preparing to be an athlete, preparing for your base training, which would, in this example, occur December, January, and February, each month building up a little bit. Then move into higher intensity phases, a little bit lower volume, but still reasonably high volume in March and April, tapering for your peak event in early May, and then you have a competition phase where really it's just about being fresh, staying fresh for your peak races, dropping your volume and intensity way down so you can perform at 100%. And what you'll notice in this example is that there's 2 periods of build, 2 tapers, 2 race competitions. So this would be a typical 2-peak season. And I just really want to stress that this is one example. A 2-peak season is typical, but everybody has different events that they're trying to peak for. Sometimes those come really close together, sometimes they're really far apart. Some people try to fit in 3 peaks in a year, some people only have 1. That is where one of the many areas where a coach can be really beneficial to you, helping you plan those things. Because if everything in your life is perfectly normal, yeah, you can probably read Joe Friel's Training Bible or read a couple books, and you can come up with a training plan that's going to work for you, provided you don't have anything out of the ordinary and nothing goes wrong. The reality, though, is that some things are often not normal, and things do go wrong. You do get sick, you get injured, you have setbacks, you get busy at work, and so forth. And that's where it's really nice to have that interaction with a coach that you can give and take and figure out really what's best for you. Anyway, back to the last phase here that you see I have highlighted is the transition phase. And in this example, it would take place September, October time frame. And that is where you're going to take a break, really letting yourself wind down, evaluate the season, and just think about what your goals are for the next season, where to go from there. So, mental break. Why you need to take a mental break? Well, there's a really interesting theory by I'm blanking out on his name here, but there is a coach who has a theory about the CNS, the central nervous system, and the balance between different forms of stress and different forms of recovery. So 3 main categories of stress would be physical stress, mental stress, and emotional stress. And you would balance that with types of recovery, which would be sleep, other forms of rest and recovery, and therapy, which could be either going to a therapist, going to a psychologist or something, but it could also be getting a massage, that form of therapy. It could be going to a trainer, could be sitting in a hot tub or wearing Normatec boots or something like that. And so what this is an attempt to quantify some of these factors that are really important with your training, but are very subjective and very difficult to quantify. And of course, it is not an exact science, but it's an interesting way to look at it. One of the things that it really helps with is athletes will often say, well, I'm really feeling tired, but I don't understand why, because my training hasn't been that hard. And that's when you look at, well, how is your mental stress? How is your emotional stress? Do you have a bunch of things going on in your personal life or your work or school right now? Or maybe it's your recovery that's lacking. You're not going to be able to recover from a whole lot of training or stress in general if you're only sleeping 5 or 6 hours a night. So forth. Travel. I put this in here because I always found the thing that wore me down more than anything in the season was traveling to races. I could do a bunch of races, but if I had to travel every weekend, sleep in hotel rooms, spend time in the car, that's what really wore me down. So it's nice to have some time where you're sleeping in your own bed and you're just at home. And of course, there's a lot of pressure that comes with training and racing. You know, feeling this obligation to do your training plan, feeling this obligation to help out your teammates, to get results in races, to perform. It wears you down. You need some time off from that. And you need to get some perspective. This is your time to really think about what happened in the last season. Talk to your coach. Think about what went well. Think about what didn't go well. And usually right after races, you're disappointed or you're elated sometimes, but you're really emotional about it. So you need to take a step back to really truly objectively evaluate these things and open up that discussion. How much time does it take? Well, I'd say at least 2 weeks at the end of the season, but athletes that are really burnt out might need significantly more, up to 6 weeks potentially. Physical break. why do you need to take a physical break? Well, you can have recurring injuries. You can have nagging health problems. You can have muscle imbalances. This is the best picture I could come up with for a muscular imbalance, but these are things that you're not going to think about much during the season. If you're in a race on a hill trying not to get dropped going up a climb, you're not thinking about, oh, I need to pedal evenly with my right and left legs. You're just thinking about not getting dropped, and you should. But in the off season, you need to think about these things because they can become worse and worse. So, surgeries is the other thing. Sometimes people have surgeries that can be put off, and they say, well, I'm racing and training most of the year, so when am I going to schedule this this hip replacement or this dental surgery or whatever that might knock me out of commission for a few weeks, potentially, maybe even a couple months. Typically, best time to do it is in this off season. Cross training. So, why do we cross train? Well, first, we're working on underdeveloped muscles, or the muscles that we don't use as much in cycling. I mean, everybody knows what a typical, prototypical cyclist looks like. All legs, no upper body. And it's even more specific than that. It's actually, all quads, all the front of quads, and a lot of times not much core. Those core muscles are really, really valuable for cyclists, but you're not going to get a strong core just by riding your bike. Parts of the upper body you're using not just in sprinting, which is where everybody thinks of using them, but also just staying comfortable on the bike. And the lateral plane, what I mean by that is almost everything on the bike is in this forward plane, front to back. Think about how you pedal. Nothing is side to side. So the reason I put this picture of the cross-country skiers here is to illustrate that, how skate skiing like this, you're really working the outside of the quads, you're working the glutes, you're working the groin muscles, a lot of these muscles that you kind of use indirectly on the bike and really will benefit you in addition to providing balance and keeping you healthy. And of course, staying fit, staying lean. Whoop, did not mean to do that. There we go. Staying fit, staying lean. We don't want to turn into complete slugs in the off season either. It's very hard if we do that to really get going again. So we want to do something. We're athletes. We get we don't like just sitting at home on the couch doing nothing, although sometimes there is a place for that. We want to have fun. We want to stay outdoors. Keep doing something physical. This is most of our idea of fun. That's why we are cyclists in the first place, because it's fun. Weight-bearing exercise. So cycling is a non-weight-bearing exercise, one of the three major non-weight-bearing exercises. The other two would be swimming and rowing. And of course, the thing about cyclists is traditionally cyclists don't do much cross-training. Rowers and swimmers traditionally do a lot more. Could talk about why I think that is, but it's not really important. The idea, though, the important thing you want to remember is that it is important to do some weight-bearing exercise. If you do all non-weight-bearing exercise, you could be at very, very high risk of having low bone density and being at risk for a whole bunch of things, osteoporosis, but also you're at much higher risk of being in a crash, and we all crash from time to time. It's just one of the facts of this sport. There are crashes. People that have good bone density often walk away from those crashes, maybe having lost a little bit of skin, People that have low bone density often break their arm, break their hip, break their femurs. It could be injuries that take a very, very long time to recover from and potentially end their cycling careers. So we don't want to see that. There's a number of things you can do. Big one is do weight-bearing exercise. The other major one is that most cyclists should be taking calcium supplements pretty much every day. Cross-training, like I said at the beginning, with weather, most people aren't able to ride year-round. So, off-season options. What are things that people can do? They often do in their off-season before they start training for the next season. They might train for a different sport. Maybe they get really involved in cyclocross or running. And I'm just going to briefly list the positives and the negatives to each of these options. Positive, you stay in shape. There's cross-training benefits to those things. Negative is that if you get too involved in one of these sports, maybe you're not taking enough of a break before next season, which really is important. People that go right from their road season, are very serious about road racing, to being very serious about cyclocross. Cyclocross season, if you're doing national championships, ends in January. Then they're going right into training again for the next road season. You need to take a break at some point, or you're never going to be 100% and you're not going to have the foundation. It's also really important to go into next training season really motivated. You want to be dying to ride your bike because it's hard. It's hard to get out there in the wintertime. It's hard to have the discipline to do a lot of these things. So what else do people do? Can do varied cross-training. And this is mainly what I'm talking about in this presentation. Positive, try different things, and a lot of those things can have lots of different cross-training benefits. What's the negative? Well, you're doing activities that you don't normally do. There's definitely a little bit higher risk of an injury. So you need to watch out there. Another option, early base training. Seen this very, very often, and this is something I would be very, very careful about. I don't want to say that you should never do this, because there are situations where you do want to start your base training early. Typically that would be somebody who has an A priority race very early on in the season. But you got to be very careful. The positive is that you stay lean and you get a jump on next year's training. Negative, again, is you're not taking enough of a break, and you risk what we always call being a Christmas star, meaning you're peaking for, or you're coming into peak form right around Christmas time, right around late December, when there might not be any races. Now, if that's when you do have, like I said, an A priority race, well, then maybe it does make sense. But if not, doing 5 or 6 months of base training as opposed to 3 months of base training, which is typical, it's really not going to help you that much. In fact, you're going to probably plateau, and you're not going to be seeing the benefit after a while. So you're really better off taking a little bit of a break before building up for next season. The do nothing option. And let me be clear here. I think this has its place, and there is some value in this. You know, you really, for some people that are feeling really burnt out, maybe had a tough end of the season, maybe that's what they need, is a complete break from all training, and maybe they're going to come out of that being totally extra motivated going into the next season. But of course the negative is that You might get completely out of shape, you might gain a lot of weight, and that's going to be hard to come back from. So here's my recommendation. Step 1, take 2 weeks off the bike. Don't force yourself to train. Do other activities, but just do not ride your bike. And I say primary bike here, meaning if you're a road racer, don't ride your road bike. If you are a triathlete or a time trialist, don't ride the TT bike. If you're a mountain biker, don't ride the mountain bike. But if you are a road cyclist and you never really ride your mountain bike, then I'd say, okay, you can ride your mountain bike in this time of the year, in this 2 weeks that you're taking off. Preferable would be completely off. I like it when my athletes come to me and are begging me to ride my bike after this 2 weeks off. In this time off, best time to evaluate your season. Look for what your big successes were and look for what your big disappointments are, and think about the themes there. When you actually take a step back and say, okay, well, these are the races, or this is what I found most disappointing in the last season, why was that? What are the themes that keep coming up? And that can really lead to a great discussion about what you need to work on for next year. And a lot of times it may not be what you initially think it is. And of course that leads to a discussion about what your goals are going to be for the next year. Step 2, think about what your specific needs are. So you might have physical needs, injuries that you're trying to still recover from, recurring medical issues. Could be asthma that you've had for a while but you've never gone to the doctor for. It could be a knee pain or a back pain that has just really been bugging you this last season or for a while. It could be muscle imbalances. I know for me, my right leg is very, very dominant, and every year I really need to think about what can I do to get my left leg closer. It's probably never going to be equal in strength to my right leg, but just want to minimize that gap as much as possible, because if I don't do anything, it's going to get worse and worse every season, and it's going to start really causing some major problems in the long term. But also think about the mental side. Think about, when you're thinking about those themes, as to, you know, what went well, what didn't go so well in the last season, biggest successes, biggest failures, or biggest disappointments rather, they might be tactics. It might be self-confidence, and these are important things to think about too. I'll get to that a little bit later. Step 3, think about what's around you. Do you have winter sports? Not everybody has this. Yeah, I think speed skating's great, cross-country skiing's great, but just like some areas of the country can ride all year round, some areas maybe they can't ride all year round, but they don't have all these great cross-training options in the winter time. But there's probably something. So if you're in school, what school sports are available? If you're not, are there leagues? Is there an indoor soccer league that, or softball league that people play in the winter at your workplace? What are your friends doing? Get in touch with your other friends that are involved in different sports, and maybe they can help you out. Maybe they want to take you to yoga or CrossFit one time. And what sounds fun? You know, cross-training, you really shouldn't have to force yourself to do something that sounds miserable. You should be able to find something that sounds pretty cool, sounds like something you want to try out. Step 4, get help from the experts. So if you're having medical problems, go to a doctor. If you've been having recurring injuries, go to a physical therapist. And of course, this is a little bit of a sell on another sell on coaches and just professionals in general. A lot of people want to kind of put their training, put their coaching on hold in the fall, and that's a natural thing to do. Very, very common. I hear that from athletes, but for a lot of people, this can be the most valuable time of the year to have a coach, because this is when these discussions start about evaluating last season and what you need to do going forward. Just really starting on the right foot. And personal trainers too, very, very helpful, especially with strength training. And class instructors can really make things, and I'm talking about aerobics classes, spin classes, CrossFit, whatever it is you're doing. These class instructors can keep it fun, can give you some objective feedback, keep you motivated, keep you on your toes, keep you honest. Step 5, start slow. So, as an endurance athlete with most endurance sports, you're going to aerobically be able to push harder than your muscles and joints can handle. And this is really most evident with running. Most cyclists can start running, and they could probably go out and run an hour their first day, and they could probably do it relatively quickly, but then they may not be able to walk for a month because their muscles, their joints are just not used to that. So you really need to just focus on getting out there and keeping it very, very slow, and focus on the technique. Keep your distance down. Again, this is mostly with running, or most common with running, but see it with a lot of other things too. The last thing you want to do is get injured. So don't even expect to get a workout when you first start your cross training. Just think of it like this is just to get your muscles used to it, and eventually maybe you can get to a point where you can get an aerobic workout. Step 6, don't forget to make time for your friends and family. You spend a lot of the year being focused on yourself. You have to be, as an athlete. You have to be focused on that training, focused on that racing, and you sacrifice a lot of other things and time with people you care about. So make sure that you do make it a priority in your off season to make up for a little bit of that. Maybe build up a little bit of credit, because you might need it later. The other thing is, this is the one time a year where you don't have to worry about your races. You don't have to worry about being 100% for your training, so you can be a little bit tired. Meaning, you can go out with your friends. Go out, enjoy yourself, and stay out a little bit later than you let yourself the rest of the year, because hey, if you don't get as much sleep this time of year, it's the one time you can handle it. Also, if you're doing projects around the house, we all know how sometimes cyclists can ride 100 miles, but they can't pick up a couple boxes at home, or they have trouble doing some basic projects around the house. Right now, who cares? It's okay. The other thing I was going to say about this is, think about your friends, think about your family when you're scheduling these cross training activities. Maybe you can incorporate things that are fun family things, and activities with your friends. They can be cross training as well. They can be active. You could be going on a hike in the woods, or taking a bike ride down the boardwalk with your family on a tandem, or a day skiing or something. Step 7, have variety. This is the last one. like I was saying earlier, each form of cross training is going to have its positive and negative. So there really isn't one right answer for everybody, and I think that the best thing you can do is try to do a lot of different things. It's not always easy. You need to do some planning, and of course in the off season it is nice to not have to plan as much, but it's important to build in the variety here too, because you're going to get bored doing the same thing, or you're going to get too specific. You're going to maybe develop a lot of fitness. You're going to get really good at it, but then you're going to run into the same problems that you run into from riding your bike all year round, that your fitness is too specific and you risk getting overuse injuries. Important to remind yourself, it's not about being good. It's not about being the best cross-country skier or the best runner or the best swimmer if you're a cyclist. It's about doing something different. And finally, I would mention the social opportunities here too. If you get too good at something, you're not going to have as much company. You may not, you may not be able to have as many running partners if you're running 6-minute miles as opposed to 9-minute miles. Just put one slide in here about strength training, and I'm going to address this in detail later on in October with one of these presentations. So send in your questions now. Certainly want to hear what kind of questions you have. The bottom line is, in my opinion, everyone should be doing some strength training. This is always one of the most controversial aspects of training for cyclists, and there's lots of different opinions about this out there, but like I said, in my opinion, everyone should be doing some, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're in the gym every day of the week. It could be as little as 2 20-minute core workouts every week at home. Some athletes, it's much more important, and they're going to need to focus more. If you're over 40, if you're a woman, if you have muscle imbalances, if you have back pains, if you have injuries, if you've had a lot of discomfort in the past when you're riding, if you are a specialist, a time trial specialist, if you're a sprinter, a mountain biker, or a long distance rider, and potentially other specialists, it's probably going to be a bit more important. So yeah, with strength training, I'll get more into it next month, but I did want to put it in there that as a point that I do think it's important, and it really should be looked at in many ways as cross training. So some examples of cross training that we'll go through: running. Weight-bearing sport, really easy for most people to do. Most common form of cross-training for cyclists to do in the off-season is running. Swimming. Swimming's great because don't have to worry about the weather. You don't have to worry about the daylight. A lot of people go swimming at 5 a.m. in the wintertime. It can be freezing cold outside. There can be snow on the ground. Doesn't matter. It is a whole body workout. One of the other things I like about swimming is that you focus on your breathing and you focus on your coordination of the upper and lower body. It's important with cyclists, but we don't notice it as much, partially because we don't think about our breathing typically when we're riding. With swimming, your breathing is tied up in your form. So if your form is off, your breathing's going to be off, and vice versa. So you really need to be more conscious of it. It helps people learn that skill. It's a valuable skill. Mountain biking. A lot of road cyclists, this is a great form of cross training. It actually is considered weight bearing in many ways. If you're riding down a bumpy trail, you'll get a lot of benefits of a weight bearing exercise. Also, you're working on bike handling, you're working on cornering, you're working on using your momentum, letting go of the brakes. We all know that can be a problem with some people. And it's a great thing to do on cold days when it's really cold out. You may want to still ride outside. Some people really have a big aversion to riding the indoor trainer. They want to get outside, especially on weekends where there's a little more daylight in the wintertime. But if it's 15, 20 degrees outside, that may not be an option on the road, or a good option. But you might be able to do it when you're in the woods, when you're protected from the wind and so forth. Inline skating or speed skating. Great exercise, and really emphasis on the lateral movements. The one thing you have to watch out for with speed skating in particular is most speed skaters are stronger with their outside leg, their right leg, and they're always going the same way. So it is preferable if you can either go in different directions, go around in different directions, or not usually going to be a problem if you're doing inline skating. Cross-country skiing, a lot of the same benefits, but of course you have the benefit to being outdoors. And it's a really excellent aerobic workout. Yoga, great for flexibility, helps you focus, meditation. Just like I said about swimming too, you really focus on your breathing, you become more conscious of it. Spinning class. I put this in here because I do want to make it clear I think spinning is a great form of cross training, but I would not really consider spinning class training for cyclists. It's a very different bike. It's a very different form of exercise, even though they're both bikes. So I would look at it more like an aerobics class. Can go whenever, not dependent on weather or daylight. You've got an instructor there keeping you motivated. And then there's a whole bunch of other things out there. There's always something new. I certainly can't keep up, but check it out. Whatever gym you go to or fitness center you go to or your friends are doing, see what's out there. And you can go to aerobics class, step class, Pilates, Taekwondo, kickboxing, Zumba, CrossFit, the boot camp. There's line dancing. The picture here, by the way, I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, is from one of the sponsors of my cyclocross team, the Pennsylvania Pole Academy, and they offer pole dancing classes for women. It's really popular for bridal showers and bachelorette parties and so forth. But it is amazing exercise, and the people that do this regularly are really in great shape. And of course it's fun, like a lot of these things. You burn calories, you get cross-training benefits, it's fun, it's social, and you have the benefit of the instructor there giving you instruction, make sure you're doing things right, and keeping you motivated. Okay, so just wanted to run through a few questions that people had that were sent in either by athletes or other people. So first question: as soon as I stopped training on the bike, I put on a lot of weight. The past 2 years I put on 15 to 20 pounds in the off season. Both years I eventually lost the weight, but I would rather not have to worry as much about this year. Should I keep doing a lot of endurance volume on the bike during the off season? So this kind of gets back to what I was saying earlier about starting your base training really early. If you're following a traditional cycling calendar, the training season starts in November 1st with the preparation phase. Starting your base training in September or October will not benefit you, is really the simplest way to put this. What's probably going to happen if you do that is you're either going to end up being a Christmas star, like I said earlier, or you're going to plateau, you're not going to be motivated, and it's not like you can just move everything ahead. You have to go backwards. When you're planning out a season, you count backwards from your goal events. So it doesn't really work that way. What you want to do is, first of all, take a break. It is important to treat yourself. It's just going to be more important for people like you, for people with low metabolism, people that are very efficient, to treat yourself, but do it in moderation. And yes, there's no way around it. You have to have discipline. You got to be careful about what you're eating. And no matter how much you're doing with cross-training as a cyclist, your volume is going to be lower than the rest of the season. So you got to have discipline. Start now working on your diet, getting those portions down, making sure you're eating healthy, eating more fiber, eating more bulk. And there really just isn't a way around it. You have to have discipline. The good news is that discipline is going to carry forward into your training, into your racing. It's going to benefit you a lot later on. Next question. My school wants me on their cross-country team, but practices are every day. I'm worried that I won't be able to fit my cycling training in because I won't have enough time or I will be too tired. What should I do? So, first of all, I think it's great to be involved in other sports. If you want to do cross-country, and your school wants you, your coach wants you there, that's great. I don't think you're really going to lose much in the fall. Now, running spring track, a little bit more difficult, could still be worked in though. I've seen athletes that have done it, that have raced at the highest levels of the sport, and ran cross country, ran track in high school, sometimes all 4 years. What I would say though is that typically by November 1st, you will be starting the training for the next year. So at a certain point, you do need to find time to do your cycling workouts. September, October, even a lot in November, that's not going to be a big issue. But as you go forward, yeah, it could start to be an issue. When are you going to make time there? And it doesn't hurt here to talk to your coach. Say, hey coach, you really want me on the team? I got to start my cycling training in November. At least once or twice a week I want to be riding. Can I still be on the team and miss 1, 2, maybe 3 days a week of practice? If you're good enough, probably they're going to want you on the team, even if you don't make every single practice. You just got to be able to negotiate a little bit and have a little give and take. Next question. I feel like the only cross-training option I have is running, but I don't really like running, and I will get bored and possibly injured if I run every day. What should I do? So, I guess the main thing I'd say here is be creative. Look at the list. That's a lot of the reason I wanted to put together this presentation, is so people would have some different options and think about this in a different way. And if you're not sure, go to the gym, see what classes they're offering, talk to your friends, go through this, and be creative. If you do end up running, yes, you should be conscious you should be thoughtful about not getting injured. Go to a good running store, get the right pair of shoes for you. Have somebody look at you, run on a treadmill, look at your form, and make sure they can recommend the right shoes for you. And you're going to need to replace, if you run a lot, you're going to need to replace them relatively often. So yeah, you want to be safe. You don't want to get injured. And like I said too, you got to start slow. You got to start with not much time. Build up very, very slowly. Next question. When I look back on my season, I found that most of my issues were mental or tactical. Since I won't be racing again until next spring, what can I do now to help with these issues? Great question. First, I guess this doesn't relate specifically to cross training as much, but watch races. Watch races on TV. Search on YouTube. Watch clips of these. Watch the end. And just ask yourself, how was this race won? How was it lost? Look at what the different riders are doing in the sprint. Look at how they got themselves in the break to begin with, or in a position to win that race. What led up to that? Of course, you can watch a lot of this footage during indoor trainer workouts in the winter time too. Whenever you're on the indoor trainer, I have a helmet cam that I use, and it's a lot of the reason I have it is just for this reason, so people can watch these races that they might have been in and see themselves from a different point of view, see where they might have been wasting energy, or maybe they were at the front and they didn't need to be, or they should have been further forward to cover a move or something. So the other thing I'd say is, and let me back up, you do, of course, want to talk with your teammates, talk with your coach about these things, see what input they may have. And there's lots of books out there on sports psychology, so now's your time. You can read these things, open up a discussion, again, with teammates and your coach. The other thing I'd say is find ways to make your other activities, your off-season activities, competitive. Even if it's as simple as playing poker every week with your buddies. Yeah, you're not going to get the physical benefits of cross-training, but tactically, you do get some of the benefits. You're doing something competitive. And you want to, with tactics, you want to be able to open your mind and think about these things. Think what other people are thinking about you. Be self-aware. Think about your poker face. Other activities, bowling, even, again, not the most physical exercise, but it's something competitive, and a lot of people, they're competitors. They need to keep doing something competitive year-round. All right, well, that is it. Of course, that took a little bit longer than I thought, so hopefully you're still with us. If you'd like more information, you can check out my website, backboneperformance.com. If you're a junior or the parent of a junior, and you're interested in getting some coaching, potentially finding out more about the Young Medalist program, go to youngmedalist.us. And of course, you probably came to this presentation by via the blog, backboneperformance.blogspot.com, but if you didn't, check it out. There will be more of these presentations. There will be more blog articles out there. Ask me some questions. Tell me what you want to see in the future. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. Tell me you fell asleep halfway through. Like us on Facebook. Always nice. You'll get updates on the Facebook account, an easy way to do it. Or you can email me directly at colinmsandberg@gmail.com. Thank you for joining me, and hope you can make it back next week or whenever we do the next one of these. Thanks a lot.